So we're at the information security section of Intersec 2019. Now this particular section was introduced to Intersec about 4 years ago, and it has exploded in size from 50 exhibitors in 2018 to more than 100 in 2019. It's more than doubled in size in the last year alone. And one of the exhibitors, of course, is Lenovo. I'm joined today by Chris Cooper, the General Manager of Data Center Group of Lenovo. Chris, thank you very much for joining us today. What is the sort of key focus at Intersec 2019 for Lenovo?
Key focus really is, if you look at the way the marketplace is changing and evolving, go back a few years to where CCTV was as an example. It's transforming on a regular basis. And the reason behind that is people are looking for more information in the data that's been captured, and they're looking at a higher granularity of the information that's being captured, so they can look for patterns and recognition of things that have happened that maybe are things that you either wouldn't want to happen or just things that are awry. And it gives you a chance then to do the exploratory and do the analytics to maybe prevent things from happening in the future.
And of course, cybersecurity is a big topic. I mean, it's the section at Intersec has grown a lot. With surveillance in particular, the industry is transforming from analog to IP. That opens up to a whole lot of more cybersecurity threats. What does the industry need to do, and how can we sort of keep up with these sort of potential threats?
When we talk about cybersecurity, it's actually quite a broad subject. Cybersecurity these days, most people term as people hacking into an account. It could be a bank account, or hacking into personal information and doing some fraud activities. But for us, it's actually much broader than that, as I say. So if you look at the CCTV market, in the cybersecurity approach we're looking at is not someone digging in and trying to ascertain someone's credentials. It's more about looking for patterns and images of things that shouldn't be there or are not normally there, and then following those patterns and learning from that. In the traditional cybersecurity, it's very different, but again, they're looking for patterns of things that then they can track back to the source of where's it been coming from. And it's about putting preventative measures in place. That's the key thing really with cybersecurity, putting preventative measures in place to stop things from happening and not doing things after the course.
And are there any sort of particular industries, vertical markets that can particularly benefit from these, this sort of deep learning that Lenovo Data Center Group provides?
It covers every industry you can imagine. So, whether it's financial services, whether it's imagery for data acquisition used in street surveillance, whether it's healthcare data, it's across every single vertical. It's impacting the lives everywhere now.
And in the Middle East region, same thing?
In the Middle East region, absolutely the same thing, no different here. What's interesting is there's some very stringent standards that have come into place from the governing bodies on data capture and retention periods. And those are very strict across the whole domain. So whether you're a hotel, whether you're running a car park, whether it's a set of villas, the standards are in place for a certain amount of retention for a number of periods. How many frames per minute of the camera, so you can get to a certain level of granularity to capture that data.
When we're talking about the government bodies, CIRA, of course, was launched a few years ago to regulate the security industry. How closely does Lenovo work with the likes of CIRA and other government agencies?
Sure. So we obviously have to work very closely, and obviously we embrace that. It makes sense because any solution that's taken to market has to adhere to the right policies and governing standards. Well, what we do as Lenovo, we bring the platinum standard of the infrastructure, and then we partner with our partners like here today. We're here with Pivot 3, who are bringing the software angle, and then we bring that solution together and take that to market. And all of these have to meet the credentials of the local governing bodies.
So what do we have behind us here? I know this is one of your product showcases at Intersec 2019. Care to take us through it?
The whole principle here, again, this is very much focused on IoT. So this is looking at, if you take the traditional video management systems, and then you take that forward to what's happening with IoT and edge computing, what it means is there's a lot more data feeds coming in. So there's a huge explosion of the data, the volumes of data, but then it means there's a lot more information that can be captured. So it enables you to go out to farther extremes than what you could in the traditional sense before. So it may not be video capture, but it could be data analytics of a sensor actuator that's playing an important part in what you're looking at.
And with the advent of cloud data storage, is that a core component as well? Where is this data stored?
So everyone's obviously talking about everything moving to the cloud. It's a fallacy, okay? Everything is not moving to the cloud, but a large volume of that data and information and compute is moving to the cloud. What we're seeing in the marketplace today, though, is an evolution where lots of clients have tried to move everything to the cloud, then they've realized that actually they need a certain percentage of it on-premise. And that then brings out on-premise cloud opportunities as well. And the reason for that is, again, data legislation, data sovereignty issues, and that's true across all industries. And also because there's certain performance requirements that maybe you can't get in a cloud offering when you're relying on a third party that you need in-house for doing analytics, for example. So it's very prevalent everywhere.
Looking ahead, 5 to 10 years perhaps in the future, where do you see the industry headed in terms of information cybersecurity and data protection?
Let me go and get my crystal ball. I'm not going to say who knows. All I will say is if you look at what's happening with Internet of Things, we're looking at so much more data coming to the forefront from sensors, actuators, and it's become more and more of a daily life. And it's used for predictive analytics, not just in security, but in healthcare. Yeah, those new data points that are bringing data in, it requires a large amount more of compute then to do the analytics of that data to understand what's the real information in there that you need to act upon. Okay, it could be looking at predictive analytics of traffic migration. It could be looking at doing predictive analytics of a healthcare incident. So there's a number of different aspects of that comes into play. So I expect to see the volume of data is going to increase. The use of cloud services is certainly going to increase. I do believe there'll be a strong prevalence of having still on-premise. But again, you're going to see, I think, a lot of the traditional vendors consolidating, and you're going to see a lot of the big hyperscalers coming into this region as well.
And of course that predictive analytics thing, I mean, AI is a big buzzword that's sort of floating around Intersec at the moment. Deep learning, that's quite a big topic now. How far advanced are we really? Is it happening now, AI, deep learning, or is it still some time to go?
Oh, no, it's here. It's here and now, okay? But in different guises. I've just come from an industry roundtable where I was given a reference of a client in the UK where they're in a situation where they've realized by the use of AI, they've actually managed to bring their 5-day week down to a 4-day week. Now, that's something else, yeah? I mean, great for them. Different scenario, though, they're a not-for-profit organization. Take that into the traditional marketplace, where everyone's looking at building profitabilities and shareholder value. What that means is you're then getting 20% more time to do more.
Yeah, so it's more than security, so it's really increasing the bottom line, isn't it?
Indeed.
Okay, so Intersec 2019 is the third day here at the Dubai World Trade Center. How's the show been for you so far, and what has the reaction been?
From our perspective, it's actually been very fruitful. What we've seen, again, like a lot of the shows these days, it's not just about end users coming to talk to us. It's actually about some of the partnerships reaching out and recognizing that as there's this expansive data and the way in which data is being accumulated, there's a need for more people to actually partner and work together. So we've had a number of partnerships come and join us and want to work with us, which is fantastic. But again, the end users. But what we're finding more and more, people aren't looking at just infrastructure, they have a business issue. So we're talking to them about their business issues, not IT, and then working with them to understand how do we fix those business issues? What fundamentally is required to allow them to transform?
Is it expensive?
Everything is at a cost. Look, depending on what it is you're looking for, okay, the marketplace, if you think about it, from a CFO perspective, okay, there's a budget. Okay, you have to run your business within that budget. So there are economies of scale, obviously, and there are different ways of doing things. But when it comes to security, it's an area where you can't afford to cut corners. You need to have a highly reliable system, and that's where we pride ourselves. We're ranked and continue to be ranked as number one in reliability. So if you're providing a security system, first thing you want paramount is making sure that's highly available. And that's where we really lead by example, and that's what we try and leverage in a marketplace like this.
It's really initial investment, but of course the long term it's beneficial for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, what cost do you put on security?
And of course, business growth, bottom line. It's all about the bottom line, isn't it? The UAE is always, in terms of technology and video surveillance and data protection, has always been quite advanced and early adopter, we might say, the UAE in particular. What about the rest of the Middle East? Is it also catching up?
It certainly is. I wouldn't say necessarily catching up as such. I mean, they're all doing it at different rates. So across the GCC, there are certainly other countries and Saudi that are really investing very heavily in this marketplace, and rightly so. There are some that are behind, but what they're doing is they're looking to share and understand the best practice of what we've done here in the UAE. And I have to say, I mean, the UAE government has done a fantastic job of this. And you look at what the UAE government's doing now when they're looking at their own internal processes, they're embarking on a real transformation now in bringing in new technologies. So outside of security, look at bringing in organizations like blockchain, functionality like blockchain, that really looks at basically encrypting digital security of signatures. So it turns it into a real digital transformation.
Chris, we've spoken enough about Lenovo. Let's talk about yourself. Your history, your background. How did you get into this particular line of business?
Well, as you can tell from the grey hair, I've been around for quite a number of years. I've actually been here in the region for over 10 years, almost 13 years. And I came here with IBM, and then I moved into the storage industry, and for the last 3 years now with Lenovo. And the great thing about that has been I'm actually here to build a dedicated data center organization. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's about talking to end users. Gone are the days of the IT industry focusing on selling tin here and tin there. People don't want to know. What they want to understand is, how can you help me fix my business issue at a cost-effective price?
Another thing that is also a buzzword sort of hanging around, I guess not just Intersec, but in Dubai in general, Expo 2020 coming up in just a year and a half here. What do you think that will have any sort of impact on information security, cybersecurity, and Lenovo in particular?
I think Expo 2020 is an excellent opportunity for the UAE to really showcase what they've done to date and what they're doing going forward. You're going to see a big focus there on IoT and edge computing, and really leveraging the latest technologies to ensure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity for the UAE government.
Early days yet, but Intersec 2020, will we see you back then?
I'd be very surprised if you didn't.
Chris, thank you very much for your time.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Gareth.